Hello, lovely people. Welcome to From Last to First podcast. My name is Muhakimugo, and this is a space for those who were once told that they were not good enough, who once believed or they knew they are not smart enough. They thought and they knew that they would not amount to anything, all because of their grades. These are people who were poor performers, for lack of a better word, but they are people who got poor grades from back in school. The purpose of this podcast, it's because if you have been there before, there are all these labels that are given to you. It may come from teachers, maybe from parents, from the society as well, because we have grown up knowing that you're supposed to work hard, get a good grade, and go to a good university. And the careers that people go for are, you become a doctor, you become a pilot or an engineer. So if you do not get good grades, it starts from your parents, from back at home. They don't know what to do with you, because you find that at their time, they went through struggles. You have heard of parents sharing stories of, how they were walking for a long distance, they were doing these odd jobs, but so they did their best to ensure that they took us to school. So if you go there and you're struggling, they may not understand why you're not getting good grades, because to them they have provided you with everything. And so there is a failure mindset that comes with it. In this episode, I'll be sharing my story from back in primary school. My brother and I were in the same school. We used to score 180 marks. And at the time, you were very comfortable getting 180. And these are the total marks that you're getting. And the school that you are in, you find that most people were the best student. Angepata 370, maybe 350. And the second person got 300. So when you're getting 100, you're not even the last one. So you're comfortable with it. And I remember at some point, my dad was like, our watoto wakika hapa watakuwa tu wajinga, so let me take them to a better school. And I remember he gave us an ultimatum to get better grades. If you don't get 300 marks by the end of the term, we'll be going to a boarding school. And because my brother is the eldest one, he was taken to boarding school, wa kwanza. And when he went there, he went to a school in Naivasha. It was a good school. It was a good performing school. And I remember there was that. When he got there, the first term, he didn't perform well, but from there on, he started improving. He got to 400, and that was his journey. So by the time he was finishing, he got good grades. And now, I was the one who was left back home. And so, of course, my parents were like, definitely, she'll go there, and just like her brother, she'll do well. And so I went to school. And of course, when I started with 200 and something. To me, I had done well because it was an improvement from what I was used to. But now, for me, I went there when I was in class 7. So by the time I was getting to almost that term, the teachers were disappointed, and my parents would be called to school, and they were told that, we can't accept her if she cannot score at least 300 marks, because in this school, the least student is supposed to be getting 350. So 200 is something that we cannot accept. And so you can imagine these conversations are happening when you're there, because it's not that they're like the parents are being told alone. So they are trying to talk to you, and going back to class, and the next exams came, and I was still struggling with these grades. And I remember that's where the insults started coming from the teachers and everyone, because you see they're the same teachers who had taught my brother. And so they were wondering, why are you kwani ushiki? And I remember there's this subject, social studies. It was my worst subject in primary. I remember I would score like 15, 16. I was really struggling in that subject. And I remember the teacher at times he will tell me, toka tu nje. So that's how my journey started. And I finished my primary school. I was always among the bottom 3. Anyway, I finished primary and I went to high school. Moving on to high school, the same journey. When I started, I remember the first grade that I got was a B- first term. And from there I was just Leander 2 C's and all that. By the time I was getting to Form 3 and Form 4, I was in D's and all that. And I never used to understand why it was hard for me. I wouldn't say I was the kind of person who sikuwa nasoma. To be honest, I tried. Because I remember I thought I was failing because maybe I was not trying harder. And when people are going to sleep, I would go to the dining hall and extend. And I remember there are times I would cry because you're finished studying. Tuseme nasoma biology, a certain topic. And I'll close the book after an hour and ask myself, okay, nimeshika nini? And there's nothing. Like, you're like, wa? Ata ili ningena kulala? And things like that. So it was a very tough journey for me. And I remember at some point, and my dad is he's a very strict man when it comes to education and all that. And I remember he used to give me his stories because he's the kind of person who wamepetea the same stories that our parents will tell us. Amelelewa ushago, and they have some struggle. And for him, he was an orphan, so you can imagine living with people and all that. So he really struggled to get us to where we were. So he could not understand why. Like, I feel like to him, definitely he had given us everything. I've given you everything. So what is not happening? And I remember even when I was in high school, I would go to all this. They will pay for tuition for me. So after watu wakiwa holidays, mimi naenda tuition. But these grades, hazikuwa zina change. Zilikuwa tu zinabaki to the same. And I remember when I was almost now finishing high school, I remember there's a teacher of mine who called me, and she told me, because there's a time I had gone to school, na sikuwa nakula, like you ujakula 1 week, and I will feel at anything, and it's because I used to worry, like, why am I different from everybody else? And so I remember that teacher called me one day because there's a friend of mine who went and reported and was like, hey, this girl hajakula 1 week, so you need to talk to her because we don't know what is wrong. And I remember my teacher calling me, and she was my sharing teacher, and she told me, I've taught you from Form 1 up to Form 4, and you're one of the most quiet students. I wouldn't say wewe ni kichwa ngumu ati nimekupata kwa indiscipline cases, so I don't understand why you're struggling. But she told me one important thing. She told me, inaweza kuwa if you're doing your best, masomo inaweza kuwa si yako. There are people who are good in maybe business and all that, but still I couldn't understand because it's not that I had a gift or a talent and inaweza sema sawa basi I'm good in art, so probably I can pursue that. I was still, and remember, we have been brought up knowing that unafaa umalize upate a good grade uende shule. So when others are aspiring to be doctors, you cannot even say you would want to be a doctor. You would not even, like, it's something that cannot even come to your mind naturally because kuna courses huwezi chagua being a poor performer. And so, I remember that teacher telling me that. And I remember when KCSE came, I was so excited because the school ilikuwa inanunua leakage and all that. And I was excited because at least nitapata an opportunity ya kupita. And this teacher, she called me. I remember she told me, hakuna haja uchukue your leakage, upate that B or whatever grade you'll get. Alafu uende ufanye medicine, and then you go and struggle there. You'll rather just go there, pata D yako safi, and then ujue basi hapa, then wacha nianzie certificate for whichever course I'll take. And I actually took her advice. So I remember again, people would make fun of me because now we were like a group of 5 girls who tulikuwa tumesema tuchukue leakage. And mwenye alikuwa hapo was among wenye walikuanga, the people who were there, they were performing better than me by far. So of course now people were wondering, yani wewe unapata opportunity ya kupita unakata, but I was like, enyewe wacha tu. So I didn't take that leakage. But I'll say my high school journey, it was very traumatizing. It was the most traumatizing place for me because I remember I really struggled to understand why am I this. And at the time, we would go for prayers. I went to a Catholic school. We'll go for prayers after preps, after supper. And I remember at some point, I started thinking, ama kwa sababu naendanga entertainment. Ama, you start playing with God. You're like, labda, nikianza kwenda CU, maybe God will reward me with good grades. So I remember I stopped. And I used to be these people who we would dance with my friends. Nyinyi ndo mnaongoza watu kudance. So I remember people would look for me time entertainment, najificha, naenda kulia huko kwa field as I'm praying to God and I'm wondering, why am I different from everyone? Tukafanya KCSE, ikaisha, and now time ya kungoja the grades now to come out.